The year without a summer, 1816, stands as one of the most extraordinary climatic anomalies in recorded history. It was a year when the normal rhythms of the seasons broke down, leaving the world in a state of confusion and despair. Across the globe, people faced unseasonable frosts, endless rains, and failed crops. The cause, a massive volcanic eruption that sent shockwaves through the atmosphere and altered weather patterns on an unprecedented scale. This wasn't just a meteorological event, it was a profound test of humanity's resilience. Millions suffered through famine, disease, and economic upheaval, while others turned to creativity and innovation to cope with the challenges. The year without a summer left scars on history and culture that endure to this day. In this episode, we'll explore the eruption of Mount Tambora, the climatic chaos it unleashed, and the ways it reshaped lives, societies, and even the arts. This is the story of how one of nature's most powerful forces brought the world to its knees and left a legacy we're still learning from. The story of the year without a summer begins with one of the most powerful volcanic eruptions in recorded history, Mount Tambora. Located on the island of Sumbawa in what is now Indonesia, Tambora had been dormant for centuries before it roared to life in April 1815. The eruption was catastrophic, reaching its peak on April 10, when a massive explosion ejected an estimated 160 cubic kilometers of ash and gases into the atmosphere. The immediate effects were devastating. Entire villages near the volcano were buried under pyroclastic flows, and thousands of people were killed instantly. The eruption also triggered tsunamis that ravaged the surrounding coastlines. It's estimated that at least 10,000 people died in the immediate aftermath, with tens of thousands more succumbing to starvation and disease in the months that followed as ash-blanketed farmlands and water supplies were contaminated. But the true global impact of Tambora lay in what it released into the atmosphere. The eruption sent vast amounts of sulfur dioxide and ash high into the stratosphere, where they formed a veil of aerosols that spread across the planet. These particles reflected sunlight away from the Earth, disrupting weather patterns and triggering a phenomenon now known as a volcanic winter. The cooling effect wasn't immediate. It would take months for the full impact to be felt, but the seeds of the year without a summer were sown in that single cataclysmic event. By 1816, the atmospheric veil created by Mount Tambora's eruption had begun to manifest its full effects. The aerosols and volcanic ash in the stratosphere reflected sunlight away from the Earth, leading to a global drop in temperatures. This cooling, though seemingly slight, about 0.4 to 0.7 degrees Celsius, had dramatic consequences for the world's weather systems. In the northern hemisphere, the seasons seemed to collapse. Across Europe, spring rains never ceased and summer was marked by relentless cold. Frost in July and August destroyed crops in England, France, and Switzerland. Snow fell in the Alps during months that should have been warm, forcing farmers to bring livestock down from mountain pastures prematurely. The skies were perpetually overcast, and a strange reddish hue tinged the sunsets, a visible reminder of the volcanic ash high above. In North America, the situation was equally grim. In New England and parts of Canada, June brought snowstorms and July mornings saw frost-covered fields. Crops like wheat and corn withered in the cold, leaving farmers with little to harvest. Reports of frozen rivers in midsummer underscored just how unusual the conditions were. Many families abandoned their farms altogether, joining the wave of westward migration in search of better prospects. In Asia, the monsoon season was disrupted, causing widespread flooding in some regions and drought in others. India experienced crop failures, while China suffered from ruined rice harvests. These events led to famines that would claim countless lives, adding to the global toll of Tambora's eruption. The year without a summer wasn't just a season of bad weather, it was a cascade of climatic anomalies that reshaped human lives. For many, it was a time of confusion and fear. Lacking the scientific understanding we have today, people looked for answers in religion, folklore, and even superstition. Some believed the strange weather was a divine punishment or a harbinger of the apocalypse. The climatic chaos of 1816 had catastrophic consequences for agriculture. In an era where most societies relied on subsistence farming, the sudden and severe weather anomalies left millions without the food they needed to survive. Crops failed across continents, livestock perished, and hunger became a defining feature of the year without a summer. In Europe, unrelenting rains, frosts, and cold temperatures destroyed the growing season. Wheat, barley, and oats, the staples of many diets, either failed to mature or rotted in waterlogged fields. In Switzerland, the snow in summer months devastated alpine pastures, leaving farmers unable to sustain their livestock. Bread riots erupted across France and England as food prices soared, and the scarcity of grain forced many to turn to inferior substitutes like turnips or even bark to survive. The situation in North America was equally dire. In New England and the Canadian Maritimes, frosts in July and August wiped out staple crops such as corn and wheat. Farmers who had worked all spring watched helplessly as their fields were blanketed in ice or left barren by unseasonable cold. Many were forced to slaughter livestock they could no longer feed, further depleting resources. This agricultural collapse spurred mass migrations as families packed up and moved westward, hoping to find more stable conditions on the frontier. In Asia, the disruption of monsoon patterns caused widespread famine. In India, torrential rains destroyed rice fields, leading to food shortages and outbreaks of disease, particularly cholera. In China, unseasonable cold ruined rice harvests, causing grain prices to skyrocket and pushing millions into starvation. These famines, coupled with the spread of disease, created a crisis that claimed countless lives and destabilized entire regions. The economic impact of these agricultural failures was profound. Food prices rose to levels that made basic sustenance unaffordable for the poor, while the wealthy hoarded what resources they could. In many areas, governments were ill-equipped to handle the scale of the disaster, and their inability to provide relief further fueled unrest. The economic strain exacerbated social divides, leading to riots, migrations, and a lasting sense of discontent. The year without a summer exposed the fragility of societies dependent on stable weather patterns for survival. It was a year defined by hunger, loss, and desperation, but also one of remarkable resilience and adaptation. As we continue, we'll explore how this global catastrophe inspired cultural and scientific responses that shaped the world in unexpected ways. The year without a summer, though marked by widespread suffering, also became a period of profound creativity and cultural innovation. The bleak, unrelenting weather and the hardships it brought inspired artists and writers to explore themes of darkness, resilience, and humanity's relationship with nature. These creative responses not only reflected the turmoil of the time, but also left a lasting legacy in literature, art, and philosophy. One of the most enduring outcomes of this period was the creation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. In the summer of 1816, Mary Godwin, later Mary Shelley, was staying at Lake Geneva with her future husband, Percy Bysshe Shelley, and the poet Lord Byron. Confined indoors by the persistent storms and gloomy weather, the group entertained themselves by reading ghost stories and challenging one another to write their own. It was in this dreary and restless environment that Mary conceived her iconic tale of Dr. Frankenstein and his monstrous creation. The novel's themes of hubris, isolation, and the unintended consequences of human ambition seem to echo the era's broader anxieties about a world shaped by forces beyond control. Lord Byron himself was deeply influenced by the year's unsettling climate. His poem Darkness, written during this period, captures the apocalyptic mood of the time. The poem describes a world where the sun is extinguished, crops fail, and humanity descends into chaos and despair. Its grim imagery and themes of survival resonate with the real-world experiences of those who lived through 1816. Byron's works, along with those of his contemporaries, contributed to the Romantic movement's emphasis on nature's power and humanity's vulnerability. The year's gloom also left its mark on the visual arts. Painters like J.M.W. Turner and Caspar David Friedrich found inspiration in the eerie sunsets and dramatic skies caused by the volcanic ash lingering in the atmosphere. Turner's landscapes, with their rich and otherworldly hues, are often attributed to the atmospheric conditions of the time. These works captured both the beauty and the unsettling strangeness of a world reshaped by nature's might. Music, too, reflected the spirit of the age. Composers drew on themes of nature and human struggle, creating works that embody the emotional depth and turbulence of the period. The Romantic movement in music, like its literary counterpart, sought to express the sublime power of the natural world and the human condition in the face of adversity. The year without a summer revealed humanity's capacity to find meaning and inspiration even in times of great hardship. The cultural artifacts born out of this dark year continue to influence and inspire, reminding us of art's power to transform suffering into something enduring and profound. The year without a summer was a turning point in humanity's understanding of the natural world, even if the full scientific connections weren't immediately clear. At the time, people lacked the tools and knowledge to grasp the link between the eruption of Mount Tambora and the climatic chaos of 1816. Yet, the strange weather and its consequences spurred curiosity and laid the groundwork for advancements in meteorology, geology, and climate science. One of the most significant outcomes was the eventual realization of the role volcanic eruptions play in global climate systems. While the term volcanic winter did not exist in 1816, the peculiar weather patterns prompted scientists to investigate atmospheric phenomena more closely. It wasn't until decades later, with advances in atmospheric studies, that the connection between volcanic eruptions, sulfur dioxide emissions, and global cooling became widely understood. Tambora became a critical case study in this field, illustrating how volcanic aerosols reflect sunlight and disrupt climate systems. The events of 1816 also highlighted the interconnectedness of Earth's systems. The widespread agricultural failures and ensuing famines underscore humanity's reliance on stable weather patterns. These lessons resonated deeply with the emerging field of ecology, as scholars began to appreciate the delicate balance between natural forces and human survival. Tambora's eruption and its aftermath became an early example of how a single event in one part of the world could have profound ripple effects across the globe. Additionally, the famine and migration triggered by the year without a summer drove advancements in agricultural science. The crisis spurred efforts to develop more resilient crops and farming techniques capable of withstanding extreme conditions. In Europe and North America, governments and private institutions began to take a more systematic approach to food security, laying the foundation for modern agricultural practices. Perhaps most importantly, the year without a summer served as a stark reminder of humanity's vulnerability to natural disasters. The devastation caused by Tambora's eruption reinforced the need for global preparedness and cooperation in the face of such events. Today, these lessons are more relevant than ever, as climate change and the possibility of future volcanic eruptions pose significant challenges to the stability of ecosystems and societies. The scientific legacy of 1816 continues to inform our understanding of the world. From climate science to disaster preparedness, the lessons learned from this extraordinary year remain vital as we navigate the complexities of our ever-changing planet. The year without a summer remains one of history's most extraordinary reminders of the delicate balance between nature and human life. Triggered by the massive eruption of Mount Tambora, the climatic chaos of 1816 disrupted societies, economies, and cultures around the globe. It was a year of unseasonable frosts, failed harvests, and famine, yet it also sparked creativity, scientific inquiry, and human resilience. For millions, the year was a time of hardship and loss. The agricultural failures and ensuing food shortages pushed communities to their limits, forcing mass migrations and reshaping the social and economic landscape. Governments and individuals alike struggled to adapt to a world where nature had turned against them. Yet, even amid the darkness, humanity found ways to persevere. Artists and writers channeled the era's gloom into enduring works, from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein to the evocative paintings of Turner. Scientists began to unravel the mysteries of the atmosphere and climate, laying the groundwork for modern understandings of global systems. And in the face of famine, innovations in agriculture and food security emerged, offering hope for a more prepared future. The legacy of the year without a summer is one of contrasts, devastation and creativity, vulnerability and resilience, loss and learning. It reminds us of the profound interconnectedness of our world, where events in one remote corner can ripple across continents and alter the course of history. It also serves as a warning of the power of natural forces and the importance of preparing for the unpredictable. As we reflect on 1816, we see not just a year of struggle, but a testament to humanity's capacity to endure, adapt, and find meaning in the face of adversity. The year without a summer stands as a powerful chapter in the story of our shared planet, one that continues to teach us about the fragile balance of life and the enduring strength of the human spirit.